Have you ever worried about passing herpes on to someone you love? Whether it's through kissing or intimacy during an outbreak or even when you feel totally fine? If so, you'll definitely want to stick around because in this episode, I'm breaking down the facts about transmission and prevention so that you can navigate your condition safely and with total confidence. Hi, I'm Kat Dupree, and I help people to navigate life with herpes. And for those that are new here, welcome. And for those that are returning, welcome back. Here at Herpes Wellness, we provide education, support, and empowerment for those living with herpes. And if you don't have herpes and you're just looking for more information, we're here to help you too. Now, each Tuesday, we post content on topics like finding love, navigating intimacy, dealing with disclosure, and more. And today, I'm going to talk about what really works to prevent getting herpes and passing it on. You'll get the facts on antivirals, barrier methods, and yes, asymptomatic shedding, because it really does exist. Plus, we'll get into how all of this plays out differently with HSV1 and HSV2, so you finally know what you're really dealing with. Now, let's get into it. First, I want to start off talking about the differences between HSV1 and HSV2 because from what I've seen, there's a lot of confusion and misinformation out there regarding the two. First, let's get into HSV1. Most of us grew up thinking it just causes cold sores. Well, actually, when I was growing up, nobody dared talk about any of this kind of stuff, right? So most people didn't even know that cold sores, also known as fever blisters, were even caused by herpes. I mean, we literally thought that they were sores caused by a cold or fever. Crazy, right? Anyway, just to be clear, cold sores are definitely a form of herpes caused by HSV1. And believe it or not, HSV1 doesn't only cause cold sores, it can cause herpes down there too. Now, although HSV2 is the leading cause of herpes down there worldwide, in the United States, it's actually HSV1 that is the leading cause of herpes in the nether region. So if you get cold sores, you can pass it on to your partner not only through kissing, but when you're doing stuff orally in that area too. Now, how common is HSV1? It's very common. It's estimated that 64% of people worldwide under the age of 50 have it. As many as 50% of people in the United States have it. And many people who have it are either asymptomatic or only experience mild symptoms. So, how do people get HSV1? Well, since it's typically found on the mouth and in saliva, kissing is definitely one way, right? But there are other ways too, like sharing drinking glasses, utensils, lip balm, or anything that comes into contact with it. And here's the thing. Kids get HSV1 too. That's right. Kids. Some live with it their entire lives. Some have obvious symptoms and some never do. So how do they get it? Sometimes from an adult or maybe a parent or a grandparent innocently showing affection with a kiss. That adult might not know they even have it, but because of asymptomatic shedding, which we're going to get into later, the virus gets passed on. Kids can also get it from other kids. Yep, you heard that right. You know how kids love to stick objects in their mouths, right? Well, if they're sharing toys or objects that have been exposed to the virus and they put it on their mouth, that's another way they can get it. And what's the typical age that kids get HSV1? Well, it's in their preschool years, ages 3 to 5. Now, let's get into HSV2. This is the one that everyone talks about, fears the most, and carries the heaviest stigma. Most people know that HSV2 as the virus that causes herpes down there. But what most people don't realize is just like HSV1, HSV2 can actually show up anywhere it comes into contact with. So, how common is HSV2? Well, according to an article from the World Health Organization published in December 2024, 1 in 5 adults worldwide, around 846 million people between the ages of 15 and 49, are living with HSV2. And let's be real, those numbers are probably way higher. Why? Because they don't even count people over 50. I mean, if you want an accurate picture, you've got to include everyone, right? Plus, around 80% of people with herpes don't even know they have it because they're asymptomatic and were never tested. So, who really knows how many people are walking around with it? And here's another number that will shock you from that exact same article. 1 person each second, that's about 42 million people annually, is said to acquire a new HSV2 infection. So the big question is, why does herpes keep spreading at this incredible pace? Now, these are just my thoughts based on all the research I've done and the people I've talked to. So for me, it comes down to these 3 reasons: asymptomatic shedding, lack of testing, and fear of disclosure. So let's go ahead and break these down one by one, and let's start with asymptomatic shedding. First, for both HSV1 and HSV2, asymptomatic shedding rates are generally highest in the first year after someone's been exposed, and it decreases over time in people who have had the virus for a longer period of time. That said, let's talk about what that means for people with HSV1 either orally or down there. So for people with cold sores, listen up. Asymptomatic shedding occurs at a consistent rate of 3%, meaning 11 out of every 365 days of the year. Now that's pretty low, right? And I'm sure many of us have probably kissed somebody with HSV1 at one time or another who had no idea they had it and didn't even pass it on to us. Or maybe you had it and didn't know it and didn't pass it on to them. However, does it happen? Yes, of course it does. Now, for those with HSV1 down there, during the early stages after exposure, asymptomatic shedding can happen as often as 3 or 4 days per month. But by around 11 months, that rate usually drops to about 2 days per month. So again, regardless if the numbers are on the low side, transmission can still occur when there are no symptoms present. Now, let's talk about HSV2 down there. Asymptomatic shedding can happen more often, especially in the first 6 months after exposure. During this early period, shedding can occur anywhere from 6 to 12 days a month. For people who have had HSV2 for more than a year, especially those past the 5-year mark, shedding usually drops to about 1 to 6 days per month. The reason it happens more often early on is because your immune system is literally trying to figure out what the hell HSV2 even is before it learns how to keep it under control. The longer it's in your body, the more your immune system recognizes it, and it could keep both shedding and outbreaks in check, right? Now, let's touch on oral HSV2, which is rare, but it does happen. For most people, shedding is close to non-existent. One study found that it only happened 1 day out of 1,000, but other research shows that in rare cases, shedding can happen 7 to 8 days per month. It really just varies from person to person, and it depends a lot on how strong your immune system is. Okay, now let's get into another huge reason I feel herpes keeps spreading, and that's because of the lack of testing. Most people think that they've been tested for everything when they go in for an STD panel. But here's the truth. Herpes testing is usually not included. You have to specifically ask for it, and most doctors don't bring it up unless you do. So here's what happens. Someone goes in, gets tested, comes back negative across the board, and thinks that they're in the clear. But the reality is they were never even tested for herpes. And if you don't ask, chances it wasn't done. Now, I want you to think about what that means for a second, okay? Someone who's never had symptoms, never asked for the test, assumes that they don't have herpes because they thought it was included with everything else. Then they become intimate with someone. The person they were with has an outbreak and tests positive. And then the finger pointing starts, right? I didn't have herpes. I've been tested. Well, I didn't have herpes before I was with you either. See where it can go? But here's the thing. Herpes can stay dormant in the body for years before it even shows up. So if you've never had an actual herpes test, how do you really even know you had it? And your test is only as accurate as your last relationship. And if you waited 8 to 12 weeks after that relationship to get tested, as that's when it's the most accurate. And doctors will sometimes say, well, a blood test isn't perfect. There can be false positives. And yeah, that's true. But you know what? You can always retest and confirm it with another blood test, or even wait a few more weeks until antibodies may have built up and test again. Look, I know it can feel real scary going for a test and finding out that you have herpes, but it's better to know than to walk around not knowing and passing it on to someone else. And here's the thing. Even when people do know, most everyone I've met and talked to struggle with what comes next. And that brings me to the third big reason I feel herpes keeps spreading: the fear of disclosure. Now, I want to touch on this for a minute because it's really important. For a lot of people, the thought of telling someone they have herpes is terrifying. They worry about rejection, about being judged, and that they'll never be able to be intimate again. And look, I get it. Those fears are real, and I've even felt them. So people keep quiet, and in some cases, that silence leads to decisions that affect someone else's life. And here's the problem. When fear takes over, some people choose not to disclose. And that silence is what keeps herpes spreading. Now, I want to be clear. I do not and will never support not disclosing to someone if you have herpes. It's just wrong, period. I don't care if you're scared of what someone will think or how they'll react. I don't care if you're convinced that you'll never be intimate again because of your diagnosis. None of that gives you the right to pass something on that could literally change another person's life without them knowing. And what's really messed up is that some people don't disclose because they're pissed off that someone gave it to them without them knowing. So they just think that they have the right to do the same thing to someone else. And let me tell you, if you think that way, then herpes is the least of your problems. And I'm just going to leave that right where it is. So, the bottom line, if you have herpes, you owe it to the other person to tell them. No excuses. It may be scary. People may react a certain way or judge you, but it's the right and moral thing to do. Silence takes away someone else's choice, and that is so wrong. So no matter what, you must have the conversation, like it or not. Now, let's get into transmission prevention. But before we do, let's get this one thing straight. There is no guaranteed way to prevent transmission 100%. And despite what you may see on social media, there is no known cure for herpes. Let me repeat that again. There is no known cure. I see so many ads preying on people's fear of herpes, promising a cure by using natural supplements. And those claims are totally false. Now, is it possible that products like L-lysine, monolaurin, oil of oregano, and black seed oil help to suppress the virus and minimize symptoms and outbreaks? Yeah, but they do not prevent transmission, and they will not rid your body of herpes. So even if you are taking supplements and you're not having outbreaks, you can still be shedding and transmitting the virus, just like you can when you're on antivirals, which I will get to here in a little bit. That said, what can you do to prevent transmission as much as possible, whether you know or don't know you have it? 1, I'm going to state the obvious here, okay? And this goes for people who do and do not have physical symptoms. If you start having prodrome signs, such as tingling, itching, or burning, do not be intimate with anybody, okay? Just don't. Even people who are asymptomatic can feel these things and just never develop an outbreak. So for any of you who have never had any symptoms, if you feel something like that coming on, even if you're not sure what it is, please err on the side of caution and refrain from intimacy until you can get a test to confirm whether or not you have herpes. 2, use a barrier method such as condoms or dental dams. Now, here's the deal. Condoms, if used correctly and consistently, can reduce transmission from male to female up to 96%. From female to male, it reduces transmission up to 65%. Now, the reason for this is simple. A condom only covers a certain area, right? So if there's an outbreak on a spot that the condom doesn't cover, it's still possible to transmit it. But regardless, using a barrier method is better than using nothing at all. So unless you definitely know your status, then it's best to use protection. As for dental dams, they could prevent fluid exchange during oral intimacy down there, but they do not protect against skin-to-skin contact. As I mentioned earlier, HSV1 is found in saliva, so dental dams can help prevent transmission oral to down there that way. But again, they do not offer complete protection. So then the question becomes, what else can you do to prevent transmission? 3, consider using daily antiviral suppressive therapy. Why? 2 reasons. First, it significantly reduces outbreaks anywhere from 70 to 80% for those with frequent outbreaks. I personally don't have any outbreaks when I'm on them, thank goodness. And second, it lowers the chances of transmission. Now, can you still shed the virus while taking antivirals? Absolutely. But here's what matters. Valacyclovir reduces the days someone sheds the virus by around 75 to 90%. So instead of shedding, say, a week out of each month, you may only shed a day or 2. But because intimacy can still happen during those rare shedding days, plus other factors that could be in play, like the location of the outbreaks, the viral load during shedding, or the frequency of intimacy, because of course, more intimacy means more chances that line up with those shedding days, right? This is where antivirals really make a difference. Studies show that valacyclovir cuts the chance of transmission to a partner by about 50%. Now, if you combine antiviral therapy with barrier methods, is it possible to cut that down further? Well, you do the math. Now, before we wrap things up, there's one last thing that I want to talk about. How much valacyclovir should you actually take? Well, there are 2 choices when it comes to dosage. There's 500 milligrams and then there's 1 gram. So which one works best? Here's what I've learned. Research shows that taking 500 milligrams each day should be enough to reduce transmission between couples. But here's what else the research tells us. Shedding is a lot more frequent in people who have had herpes for less than a year. As I mentioned earlier, your immune system is still trying to figure out how to respond, so the virus actually shows up more often. That's why some people and their doctors decide to go with 1 gram daily in the first year to prevent shedding even further, and then reduce it to 500 milligrams afterwards. I mean, I even did this. So if your main goal is protecting a partner or even reducing outbreaks, 500 milligrams should work. But if you want stronger suppression, since you're still within that first year, 1 gram daily might be a better fit. At the end of the day, it's not about the right dose, but it's about the dosage that's right for you and what you feel comfortable taking. So be sure to have this conversation with your provider. Well, that's all I have for today. If you liked today's episode, please like and subscribe to the channel. Also, I want to invite you to join our free online community by downloading the Herpes Wellness app. There, you'll have free access to our forums where you can ask questions, seek advice, and help other members along their journeys. And for a limited time, anyone who signs up for the free support membership, we're going to upgrade you to the Connection membership, which includes access to a whole bunch of cool features, such as a listing in our member directory and member search, direct messaging with other members, a group and love connection chat lounge, member-led events, both virtual and in person, plus monthly live streams with me where we talk about everything herpes. Normally, this membership is $19 a month, but you're going to get this access for free for as long as you remain a member. And if you're wondering about privacy, we've got you totally covered. The app icon and push notifications say H Wellness. So if someone happens to see your screen, you won't disclose your status unintentionally. So be sure to join us at Herpes Wellness. The link to download the app for both the App Store and in Google Play is in the description box below. And if there are any herpes topics you'd like for me to discuss on the show, please leave it in the comments. I would really love to hear from you. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you the next time on the Herpes Wellness Podcast. Bye for now.